Chapter 4 of The House on the Downs by Gladys Edson Locke. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Surmises and Suspicions. Sir Quenton could hardly contain his amazement. Rodney Sherritt drew a suppressed whistle. The black sweep of Quenton Rotherdene's brow curved ironically. Inspector Hackett was quick to press the advantage he had gained. "Raynor was coming to the Grange to see you, miss?" Frazetta bit her lip. "He was not coming here. We had arranged to meet in the Hollow." "It was you, then, that wrote those 2 letters with the Rotherdene postmark?" "Yes," said Frazetta shortly. "Was Raynor quite a friend of yours, miss?" "He was not a friend at all. That is," she added hastily, "I had written to him simply on business." "Might I ask what that business was, miss? In a case like murder, we can't know too much." "It was only that I had been consulting Mr. Raynor about going on the stage." Frazetta avoided Sir Quentin's astonished eyes. Eve breathed a little sigh. Was it of dismay or relief? Quenton Rotherdene emitted a grim chuckle. "How is it, Frazetta, we never heard of your histrionic ambitions before? If you were so eager to get on the provincial stage, why didn't you apply to the woman who owns the company, instead of a mere actor in it?" Frazetta sustained his sardonic gaze. "I think now it would have been better if I had done so, Mr. Rotherdene." "What time did you meet Raynor in the Hollow?" resumed Haskett. "The meeting was arranged for 4:30. I was a little late, and," she shuddered, "I found him lying dead." "What did you do then?" "I hurried home and dressed for dinner. I decided to say nothing about it until later. It would only have worried Sir Quentin and spoiled Lady Eve's dinner party." "Didn't you know, miss, it is a person's duty when a dead body is found to notify the police at once?" "I didn't know anything about such matters," answered Frazetta, tight-lipped. "I saw that Mr. Raynor was beyond medical aid, and I thought it would do no harm to wait a few hours before I reported his death." "Your actions have laid you open to much criticism, and may lead to serious consequences," said Haskett harshly. "You have done wrong, Frazetta," rebuked Sir Quentin. "I am sorry," she responded with simple dignity. "I did what I thought was best." Eve moved toward the door. "Perhaps Haskett will permit me to return to my neglected guest now?" The inspector nodded grumpily. "There's no need to detain your ladyship any longer." Eve appeared distinctly happier than when she had entered the library. "Come along, Rodney, and play for us. I fancy we shall need some enlivening." "Not with Mostyn hanging about you," the gypsy answered in a bitter undertone. Eve gave a soft little laugh of conscious power. "Don't be absurd, Rodney. Come along like a dear boy." The Romany's morose eyes kindled under the witchery of her glance, and he followed her from the room. Quenton Rotherdene looked after them with a cynical smile. "Very properly named, Eve." "I don't like that remark, Alwyn," said Sir Quentin sternly. The younger Rotherdene's tanned olive skin flushed. "Oh, I dare say we're all of us asses, where a pretty woman is concerned," he responded somewhat cryptically. Sir Quentin let the observation pass and walked to the door with Haskett, who was taking his leave. Alwyn studied Frazetta Lee curiously for a moment. "You're a clever liar, my dear girl," he pronounced in a low, mocking voice. "Upon my word, I didn't think you had it in you." "I don't understand what you mean, Mr. Rotherdene," she answered calmly. "Well," he said, "I understand more than you intend for me to, but I shall not give you away. Not yet, at any rate." He strolled toward the French windows that opened upon a terrace, backed by the dark, hunched mass of the Downs, and went out into the night. Sir Quentin returned to the library. He looked grave and worried. Frazetta went over to him and laid her hand on his arm. "I am afraid you are displeased with me, dear guardian that was." He patted her hand reassuringly. "I have never been displeased with you, Frazetta. You have been a comfort and a gladness to me from the first day you came to live at the Grange. I know you didn't want to spoil the dinner party, but I wish you had reported Raynor's death at once. It would have been best. And why did you not tell me that you wished to go on the stage?" "It was just a passing whim. Oh, I should like to forget Craddock Raynor and everything connected with the theater," she cried passionately. "I wish we all might," Sir Quentin answered soberly. "But there is a question I must ask you. When you found Raynor in the Hollow, did he have a moonflower gripped in one hand? Haskett makes a great point of this, and even dared to ask me if Eve, mind you, who never had any association whatever with this actor fellow, was in the habit of wearing a bouquet of moonflowers." "What did you tell him?" Fazetta's voice held an odd note. "What did I tell him? Why, the truth, of course, that they are her favorite flowers, and that she almost always wears one or more of them." "Surely, Fazetta, you are not insinuating that there can be the remotest connection between the moonflower in Rayner's hand and Eve, my wife?" "Of course not, Sir Quentin," she denied hurriedly. "How could there be? Mr. Rayner was coming to see me, and Lady Eve, you yourself heard her say so, hardly knew his name." "Dear, dear," interrupted Mr. Elphick, who with Mark had unavoidably witnessed the little scene, "this Haskett is a meddlesome, impertinent fellow. I won't have him worrying you, Quentin. There, we have all those notes and transcriptions on the Welsh gypsies to get in order in the morning." The mild, ineffectual little man was in a transport of indignation. Sir Quentin smiled indulgently. "Hold hard, cousin Theophilus. I shall not permit Haskett to delay the Welsh gypsies. Mr. Elphick, Mark, is of the greatest assistance to me in collecting and collating data from my gypsological studies. He is, in fact, my invaluable secretary. We are getting rather an ambitious article ready now for the Scientific Beacon. Cousin Theophilus is practically co-author with me." The little man visibly expanded under Sir Quentin's praise. "Not at all," he protested, but one could see how pleased he was. "I am not co-author. No, indeed, Quentin. Simply a patient scribe. This very erudite study on the gypsies of Wales, Mr. Brandon, is bound to bring Sir Quentin especial renown." Mark read worshipping admiration in Mr. Elphick's bespectacled eyes. "Mr. Elphick," Fazetta observed in an undertone to Mark, "is a sort of Boswell to Sir Quentin's Johnson." The little naturalist caught her words. "Quite right, Fazetta, and proud to be, proud to be." "I should very much like to help you in the morning, Sir Quentin," Fazetta offered, a little wistfully. "I could collate while Mr. Elphick transcribes and copies." Sir Quentin looked pleased. "I should be very glad of your assistance, Fazetta. We have a good bit of work to get through." But Mr. Elphick voiced an objection, somewhat jealously, it seemed to Mark. "We shall not need you, Fazetta. I intend to get up an hour earlier and commence work before breakfast. I have done all the collating myself thus far, and I should like to finish it myself. That is, if you are willing I should, Quentin?" He appeared almost childishly eager. "To be sure, if you wish it," Sir Quentin assented, but Mark fancied he seemed a bit disappointed. It was evident that Fazetta Lee was, although she said nothing further on the subject. They all went into the music room where the guests had repaired. The news of Craddock Rayner's murder in Rotherdene Hollow was causing considerable stir amongst them. Mark overheard Eve petulantly rebuke Rodney Sherard for talking about it. The Romany accepted the rebuke with ill grace, and required coaxing on Eve's part before he consented to play on his violin. Her influence upon his moods was obvious, and Mark decided that he was of an undisciplined nature. There was no doubt, however, that Rodney Sherard had the soul of music in him. Standing before Eve, who was half reclining upon an ottoman in languorous grace, the young gypsy fellow took up his violin and drew forth a haunting, broken melody which presently changed into a rhythmical lilt. Soon the quivering bow evoked thin, high strains like the twanging of an Aeolian harp in the wind. Then deepening as the notes of an organ, the music grew wilder with an undercurrent of piquant madness, suggesting passionate dances on an open heath. The fiddle ceased on a soft note, and Rodney fell to singing in a low, deep-throated voice an eerie Romany ballad. Mark was interested to watch the faces of Eve and Fazetta Lee. He thought he read a hint of tragedy on both, but Eve's expressed also something of impatience at the emotional tension put upon her by the music or the memories it called forth. Fazetta Lee, on the contrary, it would seem, lived the stress and passion of the music, saddened but undaunted by it all. Slowly the tears welled up in her great dark eyes, but her features remained composed. The words of the Romany ballad drifted into a weird crooning and so died away. Rodney lowered his violin, looking expectantly at Eve. She sprang up from the ottoman. "Give us something cheerful, Rodney, do." End of chapter 4.